July was a crazy month. From 4th of July to the Fed announcing they're going to maintain the 5.25% to 5.5%, to news agencies saying stuff like this, that Fed Chair Powell is signaling that there are going to be rate cuts in September. Is that going to happen? How's that going to affect the San Diego real estate market? Let's check it out. Hi, if you're new here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, great to see you again. My name's Ian Collins, and this month we have a very special guest, my daughter, Ava Collins. She's not going to probably say much, and she'll sleep here on my chest, but she wants to learn just as bad as you guys. This monthly market update, we're going to cover the normal 3 metrics to give you an overview of what's going on in the market and see how it's trending. And then we're going to cover all the mortgage rate chaos and how the Fed just met July 31st. And then I'm going to give you 2 tips at the end, and then 1 thing to truly think about and let it ponder until next multi-market update. So let's get started. First up, everybody's favorite, median sales price. Let's go over to the computer. If we go down and look at July, we'll see that the median sales price for July was $1,058,275, a slight decrease from June, which was $1,089,000. Now slide over to the right here where my cursor is. For condos and townhomes, the median sales price was $700,000, was actually an increase from June at $695,000. Now let's slide over to the left and look at year over year. So in this time last year, in 2022, median sales price for single family homes was $955,000. Then last year it was $990,000, and then this year $1,058,275. So year over year you see the home prices steadily increasing, but month over month we had a slight dip. So is that a seasonality thing? Is it inventory? I don't know. Tune back in next month, shameless plug, and we'll see how the housing market's responding with the interest rate stuff that we're going to go over later and all of that. Tune back in, but I would recommend don't get wrapped over the axle over the month-to-month statistics, because it changes, right? Some homes maybe take longer to sell or shorter to sell. There's a lot of factors that play into it. Housing and investing in real estate, whether it's your own or an investment, is a long-term play. So really pay attention to this left side of the graph, the year-over-year change for the last 3 years. That kind of gives you a better idea of how they're trending. And then if you want to go down to historical, which I don't really like to cover a lot because real estate in 2020 and 19 was vastly different than it was this past couple of years. I don't like to go anywhere before 3 years is enough to kind of get a trend of where the housing market's going. And then if you look at condos and townhomes, in 2022 is 625, and last year was 641,000, and then 700,000. So both are steadily increasing, except month over month we had a slight dip. So once again, tune back in next month and see how they're trending. Next, we have days on market, or how long it takes homes to sell. So if you look over here, for July 2024, the average days on market was 29 days, a slight increase from June from 27 to 29. And then condos and townhomes, it jumped up to 30. So maybe that plays into a little bit why the median sales price went down. Homes are taking a little bit longer to sell, and maybe some homes didn't sell last month that are going to sell this month. I don't know, but it's a good thing to realize that still homes are selling on average, this isn't even median, on average below 30 days. So take that into consideration when you're putting in offers, or even when you're selling your house, what to expect for how long escrows to go. Last metric we have is inventory of homes for sale. As you can see here, the inventory of homes for July was 272,741 homes for single family homes and 1,772 for condos and townhomes, both a slight decrease from June. So now it makes you think like, okay, inventory slightly dropped, but the median average days on market went up and the median home price went down. So all those factors combined tells me that just a couple of homes didn't sell, and that's why the month over month changed. But once again, another shameless plug, tune back in next month so we see where this trend is going. As I said last month, inventory is incredibly important, but the big question is, do we have the ability to create enough inventory to meet demand? A lot of people are stuck in those 2.75% mortgages, jailed as I call it, and they're not going to want to sell their homes for a 6-7% mortgage. So resale's not going on. We don't have enough land or space to build a lot of new construction. What are we going to do to meet the demand I don't know if we can. So that's where I think that buying in San Diego and waiting for home prices to drop isn't the best investment, because in order for it to drop, we have to increase our inventory by a lot. And I don't truly know if we can. Next, we have the gift that keeps on giving, or not giving, mortgage rates. Before we go into how mortgage rates fluctuated the last month in July, let's kind of over some key current events that happened. So the Fed met July 31st, and Fed Chair Powell and the rest of them decided to maintain the Fed rate 5.25% to 5.5%, despite all these gurus predicting another rate decrease. And it seems to be the same people, like I alluded in the intro, the same people that were saying that they expected that the Fed was going to cut 4 times this year, huge rates cuts, etc. The same people came back on saying the same thing again. So it's sensationalized news, and although it's very frustrating for the consumer, myself, everybody, that the news is supposed to be a trusted source of information, that it's hard. So why is this bad? There's a lot of you out there that had the down payment, closing costs, and everything ready to buy a home in January, and you held out because you saw the news, you saw all these gurus telling you that rates were going to drop, and I'd wait too. It's going from a 7.5% rate to 5 or 4, that's a substantial difference. But the thing is, those rates never came. But the home prices still increased that time you've been waiting. So I did a slight review of this, and it was the median sales price of a home was like $950,000 in January 2023, and now it's $1,058,000. So over that course of time, the home prices went up by $100,000 for you waiting for that mortgage rate to drop. And who's accountable for it? You think the news is going to be like, hey, well, sorry, we were wrong. That cost you $100,000. No, they're just going to keep going. Shortly after the Fed met and decided to maintain the 5.25% to 5.5% rate, the jobs report came out, and what happened was the jobs report was way worse than they thought. All the banks offering rates decided to drop interest rates, which is good. It's not going to be as substantial if the Fed drops the Fed rate, but you have to remember, right, that all those banks, Wells Fargo, Cross Country, everybody, they're all competing with each other. They see that the jobs report came out bad, so they're going to drop their rates just enough to maintain profitability to spur more business from you, hoping and praying and betting, gambling, that the Fed's going to drop the rates in September when they meet again. Will they? We'll find out. But with all that said, now let's look at how the mortgage rates trended back in July. So you see we kind of had a drop, well, August 1st, let's not get to that yet. The height point in May 2nd, we had a drop all through May, and then right there in June, we kept having a little bit of a valley. And then right there in the middle of June, we kind of started having an uptick, right? 6.86. We kind of hit a peak of 6.95% in July 3rd. And then we've been steadily on a downward slope. Remember, these are market rates for the all across the country, and they take a weekly average. Rates vary day by day, moment by moment, but this is just a culmination of the weekly rates to give you a good idea of which way they're trending. And so far, they're trending down slowly, but they're definitely trending down. The lowest that we had was this year, I guess, was right there at 6.6 back in January 18th. So maybe we're on a trajectory to get back down there. I don't know. But once again, these are conventional loans. VA and FHA are going to be different. So if you have any questions about loans and stuff like that, make sure you reach out to a lender and see where you're at. Also, if you have, well, we aren't really having buy downs anymore, at least in San Diego, but if you did have a buy down, and I'm saying this from personal experience, I bought last year again in September, so I had a 1.0 buy down. So if you did buy in August, September of last year and you had a 1.0 buy down, make sure you talk to a lender, because next month it's going to revert back to whatever the original interest rate was. So note to self, contact the lender if you bought a home September 2023 and you have a 1.0 buy down. Next, my 2 tips for you to put in your tool belt. First, there's only 2 ways to make more on the sale of your home. The first being selling your home for more money. Duh. But what if I told you you don't have as much control over that as you think you do? In reality, your neighbors have more control over the sale of your home than you do. Sure, you can do a bunch of remodeling and doing all that, but at the end of the day, your neighborhood's going to dictate your price more than you. Perfect example, my dad lived in a middle class neighborhood and he wanted to redo his floors. He was obsessed with Brazilian cherry wood. Super expensive floor, hardwood floor that you'll never get the value back in a middle class neighborhood. Sure, if you lived in like La Jolla or Rancho Santa Fe, probably, but in an area, neighborhood where most people have linoleum or anything like that, you're not going to make that money back. But he was fixated on it. So regardless, he put in these super expensive hardwood floors. Do you really think that changed the price of his home that much more than his neighbors? No. The second way, which is rarely talked about, is cutting down on your costs. One of them being realtor costs, since we are the most expensive thing when you're selling your home. And if you want to learn more about how to cut down costs, check out my flexible listing program where you can sell your home for as little as 1%. What I've done is created 3 different packages to suit your needs of your home, and it's not just a blanket 3.5%. You choose the services you want and pay for it. Most clients save between 1 to 2% on the sale of their home, and with a median sales price of $1 million, that's $10,000 to $20,000 you're saving. So go check it out. I'll put a link in the description below so you can check out the video to learn more. But just remember, the only 2 ways: sell your house for more, and you don't have control over that, or reduce your costs. My next tip is for buyers. If you're thinking about buying in San Diego, you have to realize this is the most competitive market probably in the United States. But then again, I'm only licensed in California. So your team has to be a well-oiled machine. Perfect example, if you look at the US Olympics men's team, right? It's a bunch of all-stars and they're just thrown together. And they almost got beat by that team in Africa. Why? Because those guys have been training together day in and day out, and they know how to play together, and they're a well-oiled machine. The same thing goes when you're going to go buy a home. Your lender, your home inspector, the TC, your realtor, everybody has to be on the same page. If you get the greatest realtor and the greatest lender and they don't talk and don't work together, it's not going to work out well for you, and you're not going to get the home that you want. Another example would be is people like to shop around on rates, and I get it. You want, especially with rates being as high as they are, every little bit counts. But if you go into, say, a commercial bank, which usually offers lower rates than everybody else because they're so big and realistically they suck, make sure that you know that regardless if you check Rocket Mortgage or those commercial banks, that they can't compete, because those are just individual companies. They don't work together. They're not going to allow you to close in 12 days. A well-oiled machine will allow you to compete and not get outbid over and over and over, and avoid a bunch of frustration. Last bit I leave you with before I see you next week is understand the real estate market is in flux right now. Not necessarily the homes actually selling and buying, but behind the scenes, the real estate contracts, the real estate industry. And I know it can be disconcerting for you as a consumer, but realize it's also disconcerting for realtors ourselves. And unfortunately, some realtors are leaning to the side of just damage control. Let me hold on to as many people as I can. In truth, we should be educating and being open and transparent with you guys as much as possible. So make sure you interview a ton of realtors, a ton of lenders before you decide to work with somebody, to ensure they have your best interests. And understand that the landscape is shifting. You are going to potentially have to sign buyer's representation agreements. The next date was August 17th, but realistically they keep sliding the date, so I can't even give you a hard date on that. But just know that everything is changing, but at the end of the day, good realtors are going to be here to serve you, to serve our community. And make sure you find one when you choose to work with somebody, and you'll be okay. And that's all I got for you. Because YouTube's way smarter than me, it's telling me that you like this video. Thank you for introducing and allowing my baby girl to be on this episode, and I will see you next time.